for this video's review is Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. Now, this is the VHS here, but believe me, I do have the Blu-ray as part of the Stanley Kubrick collection on Blu-ray. But this one I wanted to show just because, has the poster art, the original poster art. Definitely, if you're going to watch this movie on any format, please watch the Blu-ray. Don't watch the VHS. Don't watch the DVD. Blu-ray, again, I'm sure I've mentioned this in other videos, but Blu-ray is just such an incredible format that really allows you to see as close as possible what the original presentation was intended for a film. And this movie looks incredible on Blu-ray. This is a great film from Stanley Kubrick, one of the all-time best directors, perhaps the greatest of all time, if I could be blunt about that. This is his third and final film to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture, which, think about that. But then again, he made a movie once every 20 years or something. Yeah, I mean, definitely well deserving of getting nominated. He was nominated for Best Director as well. But basically, I mean, this is the rise and fall of a scoundrel, Barry Lyndon, who kind of cheats his way through higher class status, and it does kind of touch upon kind of a universal sentiment where everybody wants a higher status and wants to get power, and kind of what this character resorts to, and kind of how he kind of schemes in his own way to get just that, and kind of the price that he pays for it, and the horrible things that end up happening to him is kind of a penance for it in so many ways. This movie is beautiful to look at. I mean, really, if you look at the movie, almost every shot is a work of art, so carefully constructed by Kubrick. It's like a living Renaissance painting, which again on Blu-ray to soak that in. I mean, it's definitely, it is a slower movie. I mean, a lot of people will accuse it of being boring, and it's definitely not something like The Shining or even Doctor Strangelove, where it's more fast-paced and more attention-grabbing. This one, it's a slower movie, and that's kind of what works to its advantage, because it is supposed to be slow. I mean, you are supposed to kind of breathe in the atmosphere that Kubrick creates, and what he does in creating his imagery is really something that hadn't been, not really, well, it had been done, but like not quite as to perfection as infamous perfectionist that he is, Kubrick achieved with this film. Using natural light only for the film. No studio lights, creating a natural look, creating a realistic look, and a beautiful look with his story. And some of the tracking shots in this movie are just incredible, and heightened even more so by the music in the movie, which I love the music in the movie. Kubrick, of course, he had enough on his plate, I guess, without having to assign a composer to write original music for his movies. In some ways he did do that with Wendy Carlos. He did music for A Clockwork Orange and in some parts The Shining. This is all adapted music. I do believe, I think it, wait, let's see here. Won an Academy Award for its score for an adapted score back when they had that category. They don't have that category anymore for adapted score, which maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. But he uses sections from Vivaldi, from Schubert, from Mozart, amongst many others. Just creative, perfectly, I think, complementing the imagery of the movie. So it really kind of brings you to like a time and place and a feeling, most importantly, of this movie. Ryan O'Neal stars as Barry Lyndon, the title character. Pretty much so the story goes. Warner Brothers, the studio, said, okay, you can make this movie, but we need star power for this movie, so you're gonna have to choose A or B or C actor, and someone who has box office draw. And at the time, I mean maybe Ryan O'Neal isn't the most popular actor now, but in the 70s, in the mid 70s, particularly after Love Story, which I believe he was nominated for an Oscar for that, and Paper Moon. He was a box office draw. So He chose Ryan O'Neal, and I know maybe some criticisms of this movie, say that he's kind of stale and not really as good as maybe someone else could, and I think this movie, I mean, I think it must have given most people that impression of Kubrick, where he wasn't a director so much who really liked actors and kind of saw them as human props or what have you. So I think this kind of movie contributed to that reputation, but quite the opposite. I think. I mean, especially if you look at Doctor Strangelove with just the joy he found in Peter Sellers' performance, and The Shining with Jack Nicholson. Definitely not the case, but I think it was mostly O'Neill and kind of a. I don't think it's a bad performance. I just think it's a more understated performance. So he is kind of somewhat treated like a human prop. So I mean, that's it doesn't hurt the movie in any way, and I think wisely so he chose an actor who wasn't too distracting, who kind of, for lack of a better term, knew his place in the movie. But you know, to his credit, I mean, there are some really great scenes, heartbreaking scenes, where he is terrific in this movie. Particularly in a lot of the scenes near the end. What Ryan O'Neal does so well, and why I think it is a really great performance, what he does perfectly, what I think, he's able to convey this heartbroken look in his eyes, which he doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have to go over the top with emotion. You can see in his eyes the heartbreak, particularly in the last section of the film, which I won't give away what happens, but he does that extremely well, and that kind of, along with the actual imagery, the scenery of the movie, that is kind of what kind of burns in your mind's eye about the movie, that heartbroken look about the character who went through all this experience, went through growing up as a nobody, fighting in the war, and finally achieving a higher status and wealth, and what it all amounts to is not too much at the end of it all. Loses more than he gains, unfortunately. So I think it is kind of a morality tale in that case, and I think it's a beautiful film. I think it is one of Kubrick's best, but pretty much every movie is one of Kubrick's best, in my opinion. So there's that. But definitely worthy of its Academy Award recognition. If it weren't for the fact that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of my all-time favorites, like ever, 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 ever. I feel this maybe should have won, or even maybe, even over Jaws, I think maybe, because it is a beautiful film with beautiful imagery, and it is a timeless and very relatable tale. I think whether or not you live today or then, and kind of what the final card of the movie informs us, rings true for the whole movie, and it's the grand mission statement of the movie, I believe, and I like it a lot, so I wrote it down. I'm going to read it for the closing lines of this review, and it's as follows. It was in the reign of George III that aforesaid personages lived and quarreled. Good or bad, handsome or ugly, rich or poor, they are all equal now. So, yeah. That's my review, and thanks for watching.